Have you ever thought, is this just me when struggling to stay organized, start tasks, or manage time? For those of us over 50, these challenges might not be just aging. They could be ADHD hiding in plain sight for decades. I'm Jami Shapiro, host of Grandma Has ADHD, and I'm building a community where your experiences matter. Whether you're diagnosed, questioning, or simply curious, you're not alone. Our Facebook group is filled with vibrant, understanding people over 50 who share their stories, strategies, and yes, even their struggles, with plenty of laughter along the way. Ready to find your people? Join our growing Grandma Has ADHD Facebook community. Please like and subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen and share it with someone who might need to hear they're not alone, because ADHD doesn't have an age limit and neither does understanding yourself better. Together, we're changing the conversation about ADHD after 50. Come be part of the story. Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of Grandma Has ADHD. I am super excited to be bringing you Dr. Corinne. Is it Auman or Oman?
Yeah, Auman.
Auman, thank you. That's something I probably should have rehearsed, but welcome to today's episode where we're joined by Dr. Corinne Auman, founder and CEO of Choice Care Navigators. Dr. Auman's journey into senior care began with a deeply personal experience, watching her mother struggle to make difficult caregiving decisions for her grandmother while juggling a full-time job and raising two children. That teenage observation sparked a powerful thought: there has to be a better way. Today, Dr. Auman has created that better way through Choice Care Navigators, where she and her team help families navigate the complex world of senior care to make well-informed decisions. Their mission is to help families make the best choices while making what can be an overwhelming process as stress-free as possible. Dr. Auman brings impressive credentials to this vital work. She's a nationally certified guardian and an advanced professional member of the Aging Life Care Association. She earned her PhD from North Carolina State University, where she specializes in developmental psychology with a focus on adulthood and aging. And she is an experienced educator, researcher, and author. She's written the book Keenagers, telling a new story about aging, which challenges traditional narratives about what it means to grow older. What makes Dr. Auman's perspective particularly valuable is her unique combination of academic expertise in aging psychology and real-world experience helping families navigate some of life's most challenging transitions. She understands not just the practical logistics of senior care, but also the emotional and psychological aspects that families face during these pivotal moments. Whether you're currently facing caregiving decisions, planning for your own future, or supporting others through these transitions, Dr. Auman's insights promise to offer both practical guidance and a fresh perspective on aging with dignity. And we'll tell you more about how you can find Dr. Corinne Auman later in this episode. But I also want to share a personal introduction. I actually met Dr. Auman. She was a speaker when I attended the Certified Senior Advisors Conference, where I spoke about ADHD in older adults. And of course, that sparks conversations with people when they hear me speak about ADHD. And it is very common for someone to come up to me and say, I'm being evaluated. And that is actually the case. Do you prefer Dr. Auman or Corinne?
It's Corinne, and you
Corinne.
can call me that. It's fine.
Okay. But I have to say, I know that you're in the process of being evaluated, but your bio reads like somebody with ADHD. I mean, if you listen to the other podcast episodes, you'll be quite impressed with all of the things.
Uh-huh.
So where you said, I always ask if I can out somebody, and I hate to even use the term out because I don't see ADHD as a disorder.
Sure.
I'm working to destigmatize it. So I feel like if we're hiding it, then we're saying there's a stigma, there's something to be ashamed of. So thank you very much for being open to having that conversation. But there's so many reasons that I wanted to bring you on. One, of course, is your own, why you think you might have ADHD, but also because decisions are so difficult with people with ADHD. For people with ADHD, I thought you kind of touch on so many of the nerves. So welcome.
Thanks for having me. It's like you have all the problems, so please come talk to us.
You don't have the problems, you have the solutions.
There you go.
Yeah. And I'm going to apologize if you listen to my podcast on a regular basis. And I was telling this to Corinne. Benji seems to want to be vocal right when I get on to interviews. He's like figured out that he will get continued treats. And so when you hear little crispy things opening up or whatever, that is me trying to pacify my 1-year-old dog, Benji.
He knows. He's learned. He's
Oh,
like, he's weak in this moment.
Yep. Oh, he's got me. I've got the ring light on and I'm in the front of the microphone and in the pretty section of the house. So tell our listeners a little bit about your journey. I love the title of your book, Keenagers. That's also like so incredibly creative, which is another reason I'm like, if it walks like a duck and it talks, because one of the best features of ADHD is our creativity.
So to start from the beginning, you said this a little bit in the bio. I got into working with older adults in general because I did kind of watch my mom and her sister go on this caregiving journey where they kind of became caregivers overnight. That my grandfather had been doing such a good job of protecting my grandmother. And she had dementia, and really nobody in the family knew the full extent of how bad it was because he had been such a good caregiver. And then he passed away pretty suddenly. And all of a sudden, it was like they went from having two parents to having one parent and realizing that one parent needed 24-hour supervision, really could not be left alone. And that happened. He passed away when I was in eighth grade. And then watching my mom and her sister carry that experience until I was a junior in college. My grandmother passed away when I was a junior in college. And over those years, how do we find caregivers in the home? Sometimes they don't show up. We've got to find new people. They quit. Then we have to move into a facility. How do we choose a facility? We chose one, but now we don't like it. We're regretting that. We've got to choose another one. Just kind of all the things along the way. And it's really one of those situations where you don't know what you don't know until you get in that moment. And I just remember thinking, why isn't there somebody who helps you with this? This is really dumb. And I think a lot of people think it's going to be like the social worker at the hospital or somebody who is going to guide you through these things. And this is no offense to the social workers at the hospital, but their job is to get you out of the hospital. And then once you get home or get to wherever you're going, you're not their responsibility anymore. And so they really don't have guidance to give you at that point. And that's where we come in and try to help families kind of walk through that process. And we tell them the things they don't know so that hopefully they can avoid the pitfalls and have a smoother journey.
Okay. Wow. I mean, that is so incredibly helpful. And I remember I actually went through cancer 20 years ago. And I remember thinking back then there should be somebody who goes through this process with you. And I think they do now have cancer navigators, but
Yeah.
that was brilliant. And so tell me, I want to talk about that, but also I'm so drawn to the title of your book, Keenagers, because for those of you who are listening and you can't see it on YouTube, the book is Keenagers Telling a New Story About Aging. And of course, that's the shiny penny that's growing my attention. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So one of the things I see in my care management business is I really get to see. Oh, let me back up one step. When I started my business, I was very wrong in that I thought I was going to be working with 40-year-olds who were caring for 70-year-old parents. And this is a stereotype, right? Like I had this idea in my head that the 70-year-olds were the ones who needed all the care. And the reality is that I am typically working with 70-year-olds who are caring for their 90-something-year-old parents. And I have realized over the years that I had that so wrong. And if I had it so wrong, my education is in working with seniors. And I was completely wrong about who I was actually going to be working with. And if I was that wrong, boy, everybody else has that stereotype wrong too. And I think it's so common that we think, oh, yeah, 70, you'll be in bad health and it'll be all downhill, that sort of thing. And what I see with my clients and just in the world is no, at 70, a lot of people are still working, they're active, they're doing things. And so the whole book is about reshaping our cultural story around aging because being an older adult today is very, very different than the way it was for your grandparents or your great grandparents. It's a totally different story. And so I was trying to write a book about this and tell a positive story about aging. And if you go just Google words for older adults, they're almost all really, really negative. So it's codger, old coot, hag, crone. I mean, there are some neutral words like older adult. There's like active ager. That's a kind of positive one, but very few. And so we came up with this word Keenager because a friend of mine asked her mom, "Hey, what do you guys like to be called?" And she's like, "Oh, we like to be called Keenagers because the definition of keen means highly developed or
I
having
love it.
a lot of interest in something." And I was like, that is perfect. That is exactly how we want to describe this period of life where you're highly developed and you still have a lot of interests and you are capable of
Mhm,
being involved and being active, engaged in all these things and whatever you want to do. And
mhm,
so that's where it comes from. And again, it's because I see in my practice that aging today is so different than
mhm,
what our stereotypes would tell us is
mhm.
actually like.
Well, it's so funny too because I talk about the Golden Girls. I mean, I'm 55 and the women that were playing the Golden Girls were in their 50s.
Yeah.
And now you want to look at like J-Lo, who's my age, and that's what 50 looks like now, right? So that's just but I am on a soapbox. First of all, I hate the word anti-aging. I had cancer 20 years ago as a 34-year-old. I want to age. I mean, yes, I'm not excited about all of the changes that happened to my body, but I'm loving the freedom that I'm stepping into of becoming myself.
Mhm.
And one of the other reasons that I'm so passionate about this work is that I've had people say with the ADHD, why does it even matter at this point? Why does it matter
Mhm.
70, 80 years old? And I'm like, so you're telling me when you're 70 or 80 years old, you just want to sit in a rocking chair and just like drool? Or do you want
Right.
to continue to grow and experience things, take in your natural curiosity? So you're totally like hitting everything that is so important that I'm so passionate about.
Well, it's so interesting too, because it's almost like we see older people as other, right? Like they are somehow different than
Mhm,
me and you. And aging is one of those things, and ageism is one of those
mhm.
things, bias again. So it's going to apply to you at some point. You
Hopefully.
live, if you hopefully,
You're lucky.
there's an alternative, but it's going
Mhm.
to apply to you at some point if you live long enough. At what point would you like to stop being viewed as a whole person with wants and needs and desires and feelings? I mean, just all the things. And it's like we somehow put older people in this category like they aren't fully human anymore, right? They don't have passions and purpose and all these things. And yet, isn't that what you would want for yourself? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Tell me at what age you would like for us to assume that you don't have any passions or purpose or feelings, and yeah, you wanna just go sit and drool on yourself. Like,
Yeah, and then it's a great question. At what age? And, like, you're trying to change the narrative on aging, like, the whole anti-aging, like, let's spin that. That's not what it really needs to be. It's more
Mm-mm.
positive aging, and you're
Mhm.
right, keen. And again, I think I shared with you in the beginning of the podcast, I'm trying to destigmatize ADHD, and it's a very similar I seem to have 2 big platforms, and you intersect them. I would love to chat a little bit with you about your ADHD experience and where you are, and because you shared with me that you're deciding to be evaluated. What brought you to that?
So, I have a friend who I have coffee with every week, and she got evaluated, and then she was telling me about the process, and she had this, like, checklist of
Mhm.
things, and as she went through her checklist, I went, "Oh, that me too." Right? Like, that's
That's
me
how I
too.
found out.
That's me too. And honestly, it really kinda surprised me. I mean, I didn't have anything against going and being evaluated, but it had never really occurred to me to schedule it to get it done until she went through that checklist with me, and I went, "Huh." Because it was specifically looking at, like, characteristics in women for ADHD, and I think I shared with you when we met at the conference too that I can look at my dad very clearly and see that in all likelihood, he's had undiagnosed ADHD most of his life, his
Mhm.
whole life. And so I can see that. And then I look at myself and I go, oh. And yeah, so that's what's led me down that path. It's actually scheduled in October. I don't
Right.
know when this episode's
Uh-huh.
going to air, but yeah, so I've scheduled it and we'll see what comes out of it. I'm really curious at this point. And I think you and I talked about this too. Like so many people, particularly women with ADHD, I've functioned, right? I've
Mhm.
functioned well and I've never had any problematic behaviors where they said they needed to go get me evaluated to have me sit
Mhm.
down. I've made it through. And yet at the same time, that doesn't mean that it's not there. It's
Right.
we've developed these strategies
Mhm.
to work with it.
Yeah, we mask. And I've learned through doing this podcast about perfectionism and perfectionist tendencies and we are overachievers. And that's why I said your bio reads like someone with ADHD.
Mhm.
I think part of it is, and this is my experience, you tell me if this applies to you. I don't do well sitting. I have to have something that I'm working towards. If I don't have something and I've got like a day with nothing, I panic. I don't know what to do with myself and I shut down. And I think that is she's nodding her head, by the way,
Mhm.
in agreement. So
I
so
don't know. My husband kind of laughs at me. It doesn't understand because he can take a Saturday and like watch movies or read books or just do nothing. Just do
mhm,
nothing. I do not know how to do that. And in fact, what you said about if I have a day where there is nothing scheduled, like there's just time to
mhm.
relax, I almost have a anxiety attack. Like
Yeah,
I either have to I have to create a schedule for myself. Like, here are the things I'm going to get done today. Oh, but like, let's just sit around and do nothing.
you feel guilty if you're not being productive.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
exactly.
Absolutely.
So,
Um,
again, you look at a bio like yours and you're like, "Okay, she's striving, she's striving." I also have found that a lot of times because people with ADHD, we're so now and not now, and we're just so driven that we don't even stop to savor our accomplishments to like, "Oh, I did that." And one of the things that I learned in my ADHD coaching is a lot of us have to go back and look at our LinkedIn bio, even if we remember to update, and she's laughing again, our LinkedIn bio because we're just, okay, next thing, next thing. I feel like my brain, it's almost like I have more brain than can fit in my head, if that makes any sense. And I cannot like just retract, like there's too much. It's so anyway, that's actually the title of my book is about too much, to having too much, feeling too much, being too much. So you said you think your father's got it. My father, by the way, also has hyperactive ADHD and was never formally diagnosed either because they just didn't diagnose that generation. But
yeah.
I have a half brother. We share a father, and he was diagnosed with hyperactive ADHD and had to be put on Ritalin. And so when my ex husband accused me of having ADHD, I was like, no, I don't, because I'm not that behavior issue, but I didn't know that constant brain going or like when you were in class, did you procrastinate on projects?
Mhm.
Okay, because we needed that like that hit, that
Well,
dopamine.
and I am still deadline driven.
Me too.
When I was writing the book, the only way the book got, because I've been thinking about writing a book for years,
Me too.
the only way the book got written was that I signed up for like a writing coach and
Mhm,
I had deadlines. I had to have something for them to read every single week. And that
mhm.
deadline did that for me. And I'm actually working on my second book now. And I also am working with that same writing coach because I've got to have the deadline or I can't do it. And even then I procrastinate. I
Mhm.
procrastinate up until the deadline. And then it's like, okay, now I'll do it.
Mhm.
And that has worked for me. It drove my mother insane when I was in
Mhm.
school. Yeah.
Yeah, I would do science projects the night before they were due, homework on the bus on the way to school, or the class before it was due. So with my book, which is coming out October 1st, so I will not air until after October. So I don't know where if it'll be October or November, but I basically put it on Facebook. My book is coming out October 1st. And
Mhm.
at that point, it was about 50% written, but there's nothing like I have declared this to the world. It is
Yeah.
going to be done. And I'm actually, interestingly, calling the first version the perfect is the enemy of done version because I know sometimes and it's funny, I'm not a perfectionist about my desk, my closet, but how I present to the world when I do a
Yeah.
presentation or I put on an event, it's got to be right. So I just decided I was going to put it out there. What if I go out there and say it doesn't have to be perfect? Then you get to step into the world and say it doesn't have to be perfect. And we're really embracing vulnerability, which I am liking these days. It's like, okay, I'm going to take the mask off and this is who I am. Just like I was talking about feeding Benji and like, this is the reality. I mean, I could go into a podcast studio and record, but then I'm leaving my dog alone all day. So it's just all of these things. And I'm like, you know what? I'd just rather like bring people into my home and say, this is my life.
I was laughing a little while you were talking about your book because I don't know if you allow cussing on your podcast,
Oh,
but
please. It's a sign of intelligence.
when I was writing my first draft, not the final draft of the book, but when I was writing the first draft, the only way I could get myself through it was to continuously, I had a big like post-it note on behind my computer where it said, "This is your shitty first draft." Because my writing coach said, basically, we can edit anything but a blank page. So this is your shitty first draft. It's
Mhm.
going to suck. It's going to be terrible, but you've got to get things on the page so that we can edit and get the final version, that sort of thing. But that perfectionism, that's what had kept me from doing it, because what I would want to do, I would write something and then I would want to edit it. And I'm like, well, where's this going to go? And I couldn't figure out what to do with it. And so then I would just stop. And it's like, you got to put it out there. And I continuously have to do that to say, just, it's fine, whatever. You got to produce something because then you can perfect it.
Yeah, and there
feel
is
your pain.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than staring at a blank page. I mean, especially when you don't know how to prioritize, begin tasks, you become overwhelmed. And that's been actually, as a coach, the biggest thing I'm experiencing with my clients seems to be the perfectionism. It seems to be the beating themselves up. I'm not doing it the way I think it should be done. I don't want to put it into the world until it is. And I mean, hosting a podcast and coaching has just I mean, I know my ADHD now because I've been learning about it, but when I get to hear other people's experience, and I always say in every podcast, and maybe you're bringing an audience to this podcast that hasn't heard Grandma Has ADHD. If you meet one person with ADHD, you meet one person with ADHD, because we really all have very different experiences. And that leads me to, if you're listening to this podcast and you are enjoying what you're hearing, please share it with your friends. And because that's how we grow. And that's part of the movement of destigmatizing this and just saying, hey, me too, in a more positive me too, not that old negative me too. And also, Corinne, I want to give you an opportunity to also share how people can find you and who you work with. But before we do that, we're going to take a pause to allow a word from our sponsor. And I'm just going to say selfishly, our sponsor is Silver Linings Transitions, which is the business that got me into all of this in San Diego. We do home organizing and move management. Senior move management is our specialty, but especially somebody with ADHD who has to make a move. That's a big project. And that's kind of like staring at a blank canvas. We go in and we guide our clients through the entire process. So we're going to take a pause. That is how I am paying for this podcast. And then we are going to bring Dr. Corinne Auman back and let her tell you a little bit more about how you can work with her. So here is a little behind the scenes tour of how I do this podcast. Hey there, amazing listeners. Get ready because something incredible is coming your way. And trust me, you're not going to want to miss this. I am thrilled to announce my very first virtual book signing event for This Explains So Much. And here is the best part. I'm not doing this alone. I'll be joined by someone extra special, my mom, Vicki Armel. That's right, it's going to be a family affair, and we're going to have an absolute blast. Mark your calendars because This Explains So Much will be available for purchase on Amazon starting October 1st, just in time for ADHD Awareness Month. That gives you plenty of time to dive into the pages, absorb all those aha moments, and come ready for our interactive book club discussion. Whether you're sipping your afternoon coffee on the West Coast at 4 p.m. or settling in with your evening tea on the East Coast at 7 p.m., we've got you covered. We will be live on Sunday, October 26th. This isn't just any book signing. It's your chance to connect with me and my mom, ask questions, share your thoughts, and be part of a community that gets it. Because honestly, this really does explain so much, and I can't wait to explore it all with you. So grab your copy on October 1st, Start reading and get ready for an incredible virtual experience on October 26th. Trust me, you belong here, and we can't wait to see your faces on screen. Until then, keep being awesome, and remember, the best stories are the ones we discover together. See you October 26th. Ever wondered why helping a loved one declutter feels like speaking different languages? I did, especially with my mom. It wasn't until I founded Silver Linings Transitions, helping San Diego seniors organize and move for over a decade, that I discovered why. We all experience clutter differently, and for those of us with ADHD, it's a whole other world. If you are listening in the San Diego area and feeling stuck with moving, paperwork, photos, or home organization, our team at Silver Linings Transitions gets it. We understand ADHD's unique challenges, and we won't just help you get organized. We'll create sustainable systems that finally stick. Schedule a consultation with our team today at 760-522-1624. That's 760-522-1624, or find us at silverliningstransitions.com. When I take the pause, I usually have a sip of water and I ask my guest, how do you feel the interview is going? Is there anything we didn't touch on that we should? And then sometimes there's a conversation that I feel like, oh, we need to bring this out for the audience. So we definitely want to talk more about care management. So I'm going to leave you with that. But also, we were talking about, see, there is my brain going blank on you. And I like when it happens in real life because people can say, and I'm not panicked about it anymore. Like I used to give a presentation, I would forget what I was saying, like in the middle of in front of everybody. And then I would like step back, take a sip of water, hope that I could figure out what I was saying. And then usually it would come back to me. Now I'm like, okay, can you tell me what I was saying? So we were talking, I said, now I remember, see that I said, how did it present in your childhood? And you said you felt like it, for the most part, we touched on it with procrastination and perfectionism, but you were telling me about the conversation that you had with your friend who was evaluated. So I would love for you to just share a little bit about that with me.
Yeah, well, so she had her checklist and everything, and I'm looking at the symptoms and going, "Oh yeah, okay, this is me." And then the other thing she said, because she had gotten evaluated and did start medication, and she said all the noise in her head had quieted down. And I think about that noise in my head almost like they're people, right? Like it's different parts of me and they're competing for attention and time and what do we need to do next, that sort of thing. And so I was like, oh, I can get all the people in my head to sit down at the table. Like everyone could just chill and relax, because I do think we were talking earlier about feeling like if I've got a bunch of free time, I don't know what to do. It's almost like those different parts of me, all of a sudden they go, oh, I want to be in charge. And there's all this kind of chaos that happens, creates all the anxiety and that kind of thing. So I'm really interested in whether or not I can get all the parts to sit down and chill out. Could they relax for a whole day? That's something that is possible.
Right.
I do want to say though, like if I go on vacation, if you take me out of my normal environment, then I can relax.
Yes.
Right? Like, if you take me somewhere different, I can. If I'm here, say what needs to get done next.
For me, it's productivity. So I don't feel guilty if I'm not productive on a vacation.
That's right. Then I can actually go do stuff. There's no staycation for me. That's not going to be a.
Yeah. Wow. So see, I just added another tool in my toolbox. I do want to touch on medication really briefly, just because I do stay away from that conversation. Just because, and this is something you're going to know, as we age, we have so many other conditions that are going on that have to be managed that sometimes we can't bring in another pill or we can't take a stimulant. I am not saying I'm against it in any way, shape, or form. I just stay away from it because of who my audience is. But I'm open. I am now taking a little bit of Wellbutrin. I'm on the lowest dose. My ADHD was pretty manageable. And then, as I was sharing with you, I think at conference, that as I am approaching menopause, I have not had a period since January of 2025. We're now in September. And so I'm not menopausal yet, but it's looking like it's going to happen. Although I did have a dream that I was menstruating last night. Hopefully that I
What
mean,
a
let's
terrible dream.
finish.
Terrible.
But my ADHD has gotten to the point where I'm impacted by it.
Yeah.
And so I decided I did went on Wellbutrin for anxiety while I was going through my divorce and starting a business. And then I went off of it. So I knew that one of the off labels of Wellbutrin was easement of ADHD symptoms. And so I take that and that has helped. So like I said, I'm not anti medicine. I'm just
I,
not.
I I think that's an excellent point. I mean, we are a really good society of prescribing medications. We're not terribly good at de-prescribing medication. And one of the things I see all the time in our care management practice is seniors who are on so many medications from different doctors, and the
Mhm,
doctors are not communicating with each
mhm,
other. One of the services we offer, we have a nurse on staff, and she will come in and review all their medications.
mm,
And then if she sees things like duplicate blood pressure medicines or things that she can't figure out why they're on it, they've been on it for years and the client doesn't know why they take it anymore, they just do. She'll call the doctors with the patient there and try to get everything straightened out so that if we can reduce that medication load, we want to, because our bodies change as we get
mhm,
older. And so how we process the medications
mhm,
changes. We don't get them out of our system as fast. And of
mhm.
course, the more medicines you take, the more potential there is for drug interactions.
Yep.
When you've got somebody on 13 or more medications, nobody has ever run a study going, well, let's see what this combination of medications does. And we are the lab rats in that situation. And if your loved one isn't, if they've got other symptoms, if they've got progression of dementia or things like that, the number one thing we look at is what medicines are they on and
Mm,
are there things we could get them off of? Because sometimes that dementia is actually medications that have a lot of side
sure.
effects and are muddling and giving them brain fog.
Sure. And I want to say also ADHD can cause that brain fog as well. And people aren't
Right.
aware of that. And I also learned as a certified senior advisor in my years of working with seniors is that it can also be a UTI. And I've actually had a friend whose mother started to show signs of dementia. And I'm not a doctor, but I'm like, I've heard it could be, and sure enough, she had a UTI.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear a little bit more about care management from you, just so that our audience knows that it exists and how they can be helped. And you're in the North Carolina area, is that correct?
Yeah, I am. So our professional organization is called Aging Life Care because we really can help do care management for people of all ages, even people with developmental disabilities, all kinds of groups. But typically we're working with older adults. That's the most common.
Mhm.
But aginglifecare.org, and you can use the search feature on that website to find a care manager anywhere in the United States. And so that's a really great resource because I'm in North Carolina. And what you really want, excuse me, is someone in your local area because they're going to know the resources and
Mm.
what's available to you in that area. I know Central North Carolina. If you put me in Missouri, I am not going to know the laws or the rules or any of the resources in Missouri. But care management itself is really, I joke sometimes that we're like adult daughters for hire, and my team happens to be all female. There are male care managers out there too, but we really do everything that an adult daughter would do if she wasn't working a full-time job and also raising her children and just all the things that we have going on in our lives today. So we will hire and coordinate home care if your loved one needs that. We will go with your loved one to doctor's appointments and make sure that the doctor hears what they actually need to hear because sometimes our older adult loved ones are not reliable reporters. They go to the doctor and they say, everything is fine, and everything is not fine.
Well, I wanna say that just having gone through cancer, when you're in that fight, flight, or freeze mode, you also
Mhm.
aren't processing information.
Right.
So we're having another person there that's hearing that conversation. And I do wanna bring up, 2 other things, and that is I could see a solo ager working with a care manager,
Yep.
and I wanna highlight, and this was something that I've become really open about. I did not grow up I have not been close with my mother since my 20s. And then when you work at predominantly as a senior move manager and you would have these people coming into communities, And the marketing people would say, I don't know where that adult child is, the parent's on their own. And I used to just say, you don't know what that relationship has been. You don't understand. So let's not pass judgment on that adult child.
Right.
And because of my mom's and my understanding of ADHD and its impact on our relationship, we've finally been able to address those things that caused us not to be close and to have that friction. And she now sees my perspective and I now see hers. And to me, that's a really, really, I'm actually speaking, I'm the keynote speaker at the Aging Life Care Manager Conference for Western Region. I'm going tomorrow. Yeah.
Wonderful.
So I think it's really important that people also know, and again, so that there's no guilt because nobody wants to walk away from their parents. That's not the choice that most people will. I mean, I'm not going to use the term normal, but I mean, a narcissist is a narcissist. But that's not what we want. That's
Right.
not natural. So I do want to bring up that somebody who maybe isn't an adult daughter or doesn't have an adult daughter might also want to have a care
Yeah.
manager.
And we have clients who are solo agers, they never had kids. We also have clients who their kids just live really far away. Like some of our clients, we have one that's the adult child's in the Philippines. We have another one, the adult child's in Portugal. And so, for all intents and purposes, those people are solo agers, even because their kids live so far away, it's not practical for them to
Mhm.
help on a daily basis. And in our practice, we do serve as healthcare power of attorney for people who don't have anybody else to appoint. We also serve as guardian for some clients who don't have anybody else to be that we'll do guardian of the person. This is sometimes called conservatorship. That varies from state to state. And so we can really be a resource for people who just don't feel like they've got anybody that they want to, I don't want to say put the burden on, but it's a lot to ask of someone to be your healthcare power of attorney. And
Mhm.
we're not always comfortable asking a friend or a neighbor to do it. We may not want them all up in our business like that. And
For
so
sure.
there are professionals who you can work with to get those services and to know that you've got somebody who's really knowledgeable and can help support you in those times.
I love that. That's super helpful. So I'm really glad we're bringing this information to our audience. I want to just really quickly, if you could talk, just give me like a really good nugget. If you had to sum up your book, Keenagers, and also how people can find it. Like I said, it's right behind you. So I just keep looking at it and yeah, it's beautiful. It's got an owl on it and it's kind of tilting its head. And okay, so give us a little bit about Keenagers and how someone could purchase it.
Sure. So purchasing is very easy. It's on Amazon, or you can go to my website, which is my name, CorinneAuman.com. And the book is linked there as well. I also have a little Keenager store where you can get cute merch and positive aging merch. But the book is really about because fighting ageism is an inside job. You have to start with your own head and what are you thinking about your aging experience and what are you saying? What are the words that are coming out of your mouth about your aging? And so it's filled with how do we do this, right? How do we prepare appropriately for our older adulthood? And how do we plan to have a really good experience? It's also got a lot of interviews with people who are doing this really well. And so some people who've inspired me, and I'm kind of telling their stories about here's what they did to make this a good experience. Here's the things that they overcame. And none of these people are like these sort of perfect super ager kind of things. They all have health conditions. They all have things that have gone wrong, right? But they are still having a really fun experience. And it makes me look forward to growing older. And that's what I want for everybody who reads the book.
I love that. That is exciting. You know what? It made me think I would love to have you back once you get your diagnosis because I think you'll probably get it. I'm not a doctor. And then maybe share some of the stories in your book. I think that could be kind of fun.
Sure. I'd love to.
Yeah. So, and I do want to tell anybody who is listening to the podcast and is not watching it that Corinne is CorinneAuman.com. So CorinneAuman.com. Okay, so we covered a lot. It's a total ADHD conversation. We went from menopause to I don't know if you're like this, but like I will end an interview or a podcast or a conversation and then I'll hang up the phone and I'll be like, I should have said whatever it was. Is there anything that you're like, I wish she'd asked me or I wish I'd said?
I don't think so. Stuff like that doesn't come to me until about 30 minutes later. And then something will pop up and I'll go, oh, we should have talked about that. But right this minute, no, I don't have anything.
That makes me think, well, maybe I should have like a little segment on the podcast, like when I get that phone call afterwards.
Yeah, the
Well, that's one
follow-up.
more thing to produce. I'm just trying to keep it simple.
Sure.
That would be my little PSA announcement for people who are listening. It's like, where can you simplify your life? I'll give you a really good story to end with. So I presented at the CSA conference, but before I presented at that conference, I was presenting at the San Diego Certified Senior Advisor meeting, and I was doing the presentation on ADHD in older adults. And it was my responsibility to bring breakfast. And I remember the woman who organizes the meeting says, don't make it a big breakfast, a box of pastries. Nobody will eat it anyway. Well, I'm a Jewish mom and I can't just not bring in like something. So I'm at Trader Joe's and I'm like, oh, I'm going to get granola and the yogurt and the fruit and the blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, you know what? I don't need to bring the granola and I don't need to do all of that. I can keep this easier because if I did the granola and the fruit and the yogurt, then I was going to have the bowls and the spoons and it was all, and then keep it all cold. And so I simplified it. I still did hard boiled eggs, fruit, and pastries, but I did not do the yogurt. And that was an example of me just like, okay, pulling it back because again, I always feel like I have to put on this perfectionist a persona for people because I want them to look at me and think I've got it together because underneath I am like paddling that under that water. And then the other big thing that happened, I call this my purple plate story, is that I normally will go out and buy like the silverware, like the plastic ware. I hate to use that, and the paper plates and the napkins, and they always match whatever the theme is. And so the color for Silver Linings Transitions, my company, is orange, which coincidentally, I did not know the ADHD awareness color was orange. And now it's just like, well, of course. So I would have gone out and got all the orange plates and all of that stuff. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to keep it simple. So what I happened to have at my house was my stepdaughter had her 13th birthday plates and cups and all of this stuff left over and napkins. And so I brought the 13th birthday. Yes, I see the laugh. And you know what? It was fine. It was
Right.
absolutely fine. So I'm just suggesting to anybody who's listening that perfect really is the enemy of done. And don't worry so much about what everybody else thinks. They're not thinking that much. In fact, I think almost they're sort of celebrating, like, oh, she can do that and no one's judging her. I don't have to do that either. So
Right.
that's my little PSA.
I love it.
Yeah. So any other, I know I like to talk. That's why I host a podcast.
That's right. Oh, starting a podcast is another one of those things on my to-do list that I want to do but haven't done. So yeah, on that perfect. And part of it is that I feel like I'm not quite ready. Like I don't quite have all my ducks in a row and I don't. So I haven't gotten there yet.
You know what? If you start listening to podcasts, especially people's first podcasts, you'll see. I mean, even mine has evolved.
Of
And
course.
it evolves, but you've got to start somewhere
Yeah.
and to just start marking your claim and doing it. So I started this before I finished ADHD coaching. And I'm just like, at least when I have my stake claimed or my whatever. So
Yeah.
I'm going to challenge you to perfect is the enemy of done this and just put something out there.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and then you will get better and better and better.
We'll see.
Okay. I also advocate that, by the way, for seniors or older adults, is that you have so much wisdom, especially those of us with ADHD. There's so much creativity, so much wisdom. It's like, what can you do to use all of that? So maybe you start a TikTok channel, maybe you start a podcast, maybe you write a book. I love the idea of doing TikTok reels with grandchildren. I love seeing grandparents and grandchildren all over social media. So just be thinking creatively. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed being on the podcast. I loved having you and learning,
Yeah.
Dr.
Thanks for having me. It was great.
Corinne Auman. And for all of you who listened, I appreciate you taking time out of your day to hear what we have to say. And again, please like and give me a message. Let us know what you think. And then find us on the Grandma Has ADHD Facebook page. Now that the book is written, I can go back to paying attention to that because I sort of could only do one thing at a time and I neglected that. And now I want to build a community. So find us and help me build the Grandma Has ADHD community because we really are not meant to be alone. whether it's family that we have by choice or family that we have by birth, we can all be connected to other people. So those are my parting words. Yeah. So anyway, thanks so much for listening. Make the rest of your life the best of your life. The opinions expressed on Grandma Has ADHD podcast are those of our guests and hosts and are intended for informational and entertainment purposes only. This podcast does not provide medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. The content discussed in this episode is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician, mental health professional, or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or mental health concern. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or emergency services immediately. The hosts, guests, and producers of Grandma Has ADHD do not assume any liability for the content of this podcast. Listen at your own discretion.